Raina Troy Hotline.
Alicia, Michael, what's going on?
We know you have takes. We have takes.
I'm actually surprised that your rant line, rave line, whatever, isn't completely full.
Why can't we just win a game?
Can I blame Michael Castillo for this?
Can I blame Bob Connolly for this?
Can I put on a zebra shirt and just go out there? Scratch, claw, up against the wall. Can't explain it what I'm feeling right now, guys. I can't believe it.
Let's open up that rave line! Woohoo!
Oh, I can't believe USC is undefeated in the SEC. Wait, we're in the Big Ten. What's our record? Oh, no!
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Rant Line Radio, episode 597, coming to you on Wednesday, May 7th. We're going to talk about the latest in USC football, including the Trojans having a new strength and conditioning coach, a new transfer, a couple new recruits we're going to talk about, and so much more. As always, you can follow us on social media at Rant of Troy, email us to rantoftroy@fanside.com, and our phone number, 818-643-7227, Second Whisper and Show. I'm your host, Michael Castillo, journalist, my co-host, here in the Rant Troy studio in Los Angeles, Alicia D'Artola.
Hello, everybody.
Hello. We're back. Back for another episode in which we're talking more staff hires. I feel like this is all we ever talk about. We're reign of personnel. Is that what we are? Feel like it.
At this point, we might be.
Yeah.
I don't know that that's like. I don't think that's a bad thing necessarily, because most of the staff hires that we've covered thus far have been positive.
Yeah, I would say so.
Seemed
yeah.
so.
Yeah.
So we could be having a worse time.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, before you move on, any comment on?
I think Chelsea wins in a landslide. I would have told you that before the game, Michael, because I did not expect
sure.
any. I think if you had
I
taken the blood alcohol levels of any of Liverpool's players during that game, none of them would have been able to drive.
Yeah.
Is all I'm saying. Yeah, that you're welcome.
Hey,
Not only did
Georgia
Liverpool
from winning.
Not only did Liverpool give Chelsea a much needed win, and I swear, guys, we will stop talking about soccer soon. Not only did Liverpool give Chelsea a much needed win in their pursuit of Champions League places, but Liverpool also had the generosity to gift Cole Palmer a penalty for him to break his scoring drought. So, good guys, Liverpool.
Yeah, of course it wasn't earned. Yeah, absolutely.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Anyways, speaking of good guys, good people, good friends in the chat. Welcome if you're watching us in the chat. Cam's there and says, "Yo, how we doing, squad? We're doing good. We hope you're doing good. As good as Chelsea FC is right now, I think. Hopefully." Funny Not MC says, "Hey, Rot family," and throws a little fight on emoji as well. Alicia, let's just get straight into it. Let's not beat around the bush and get straight to USC's new strength and conditioning coach. All right. Last week, SC decided to make a change at strength and conditioning. Benny Wiley no longer with the program. Lincoln Riley and staff, whoever you want to, Lincoln Riley, Chad Bowden, all of them collectively go and make a good hire. This one is Kansas State strength and conditioning coach Tremaine Carroll. He's going to replace Benny Wiley. I think the first things first, Kansas State, sad to see him go, which is exactly what you want. That's always what you're looking for. Ideal situation. You want someone who is wanted. Carroll played defensive end at Oklahoma State early on in the Les Miles era, 2001 to 2005, with the Cowboys there. Started at Oklahoma State, then bounced around the lower levels, moved up to FBS, back again with Oklahoma State in 2013, then SMU, Arkansas, USF, and then K-State since 2021. Alicia, tell us your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, the first thing I wanted to know was how do Wildcats fans and media feel about this, and it sounds like everybody was pretty bummed, which is exactly what I like to see. I immediately went onto Twitter and did a search for his name and scrolled through and saw things like Carroll has deservingly received more praise than any assistant under Chris Kleiman to a fault as he leaves for the West Coast. Another tweet that said this is a significant loss for K-State. Another tweet saying pretty major loss for K-State. And then previous tweets about him at K-State and how he was perceived. In 2022, there was a tweet saying, can't talk to anyone at K-State without them seeing the praise of Tremaine Carroll. His stock couldn't be higher. Same year, Tremaine Carroll, known as Coach True, is one of the most beloved individuals in the K-State football program. The year he was hired from K-State, by K-State from USF, the reaction to the hire then, there was a tweet talking about how players exchanged messages with the USF guys who were trained by him, and that everybody had really, really good things to say about him. So again, seems to be a universally well-liked, universally respected, up-and-coming strength and conditioning coach who USC taps to, bring this program into the next phase. And I think there's a lot to like about him. I obviously, we say this all the time, we don't know what a good strength and conditioning coach looks like. Words mean even less when it comes to talking about a strength and conditioning coach than like a position coach. But we can go by reputation, and the reputation is pretty darn good.
Yeah, I think that you got to start somewhere, and the reputation being good is a good thing. There's a profile done by him over on him at kstatesports.com. And, quote, we have 4 core values, which are discipline, commitment, toughness, and selflessness. I'm not going to say that was written by ChatGPT. I'm not saying that. I'm also going to say that if
this was back in 2022.
No, I know. I'm just going to say, if you ask ChatGPT to write a phrase that a strength and conditioning coach would say, discipline, commitment, toughness, and selflessness are all the hallmarks that you want to see. So, in other words, yeah, sounds like a strength and conditioning coach. That's what you want to hear from your strength and conditioning coach. Those are the principles and the core values that I think that you want. So yeah, absolutely. He's someone who thrives in player-led, efforts. Quote, it starts with identifying your leaders and who is already a great leader and who has potential leadership abilities and who's a guy who's really a magnet in that locker room, guys that are really drawn to as individuals. Once we identify them, then we have obviously time to spend with them. We have 21 guys on our roster that are part of the Leadership Council. We meet with those guys every week throughout the course of the offseason. How that looks for us in particular with strength and conditioning is following Friday's workout. They work out Monday through Friday. We pile into this room or go outside, and we have a week of reflection. What went well this week and what could have made this week better? I print out a sheet of these questions and hand to each leader every week, and I make them answer those questions. Alicia, this was obviously what was going down in Manhattan, Kansas. Things could absolutely be different at SC, but again, those seem like good things.
And again, it's differentiating this from one thing versus another. Like USC has had a leadership council, to be sure, in different forms from the different coaching staffs that we've covered at USC. Yeah. Everybody does things a little bit different. Everybody does things a lot the same. Mm-hmm. So, I don't think this is like groundbreaking what he's talking about, but I do think it speaks to his philosophy, his approach, which is to put responsibility on players, build up the concept of leading by example and creating accountability that way. So, and apparently, from what we can tell from within K-State, this approach from him has worked. So we'll see how it goes at USC, but it's very clear that one of the first jobs that he will have when he comes to USC is to identify his leaders and get them to be the driving force behind change at USC, because I think that we've seen over, culturally, every year, every team says that this is the best culture they've ever had.
Yeah.
And every year, every team may or may not be lying about that or deluded about that. So it's definitely hard to say, but leadership within a locker room does matter. The mindset of players within a locker room does matter. And having a strength and conditioning coach who comes in with the philosophy of putting it in the hands of the players to be self-reflective, to answer those questions about, what they did well and what they didn't do well and how to approach those things. Like, I got no complaints. Sounds good.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to start somewhere. He's done the things that you've wanted to see. Catapult, something that he's been involved with. We know SC has been involved with that for like more than a decade, right? So like a lot of those areas, and sports analytics and sports science and all that kind of stuff. It's 2025. That's absolutely needs to be part of the game, and he's with it. So that's what you want to see. Let's talk about recruiting here.
Oh, hold on. I do have one more thing to say.
Go for it.
I think that one of the more interesting things from that K-State article was about his approach to training. We've seen USC have questions about like how much are they prioritizing weight gain, how much are they prioritizing speed or this or that or this or that. And I did think his answers about how he goes about focusing on a particular like number one trait that they're trying to build up. He brought like stats. Was really interesting. He talked about when he first got at K-State, they decided that speed was going to be their number one priority. They did testing where they only had 4 players who could run 20 miles an hour. And a year later, they had improved that to 41 players who could run 20 miles an hour, and 11 of them could run 21 miles an hour. So, like, that is obviously, the focus that he comes in with, but it's not just like, it's not speed. It's not getting bigger or anything like that. Like his whole philosophy is take a deep look at the roster, at the needs, and then go all in on improving that trait that this team is most lacking, I guess. And he does that by leaning a lot on technology, which I think is really, really important because, again, like you mentioned, Catapult, it's not about making sure that USC has Catapult, which they have had for many years now.
Yeah.
It's about making sure USC is at the forefront of the next Catapult. Like, is USC using AI right now would be a question that I have. Like, is USC using every piece of technology that is available to them to be at the forefront of the sport right now? I don't know if they are. Maybe they already are. But I do think I get the vibe from Carroll here that, like, he is thinking that way. He's thinking about, if given this level of investment, what can I bring? And I think it's very telling that he comes to USC from a place where he is beloved at K-State. I'm sure USC gave him a pay raise, but also I would not be surprised based on USC's current track record that USC has a plan in place to heavily invest in strength and conditioning, in terms of hiring personnel, in terms of making investments towards technology and the like. So if you're, Tremaine Carroll, I think there's a very, very, very good reason to come to USC and leave behind K-State because everything that we have seen from USC right now indicates that USC is going to go all in on making his dreams come true in terms of like what he's got available to him. Yeah,
100%. I think like we said, all the things are here that you want to see. You want to see SC for any position really. You want to go hire someone who's qualified, go hire someone in demand, and usually both those things go hand in hand, and that puts you in the best position to succeed. Will every hire be great? No, but that puts you in the most likely situation to succeed going forward. Let's get to recruiting. SC got 3 new commitments here at the start of May. They now have 27 commitments in the 2026 class. Let's see, just want to put this into perspective. SC, not only the number one class in the country, with 27 commitments, you should be, but they are the number one class in the country. According to 24/7 Sports Composite, they have 294.7 recruiting points. Number 2 is Notre Dame with 236.07. The difference between SC and Notre Dame, number 1 to number 2, is the difference between number 2 to number 9, which is Illinois. Like, there is a huge gap. SC has 27 commitments. Florida has 1. Like,
That's pretty funny.
Michigan has 5. It's crazy. I'm sure if I scroll down here long enough, there'll be somebody with 0. The point is, SC's in a really great spot. They've put together a really strong early class. Mind you, they've got to land it. Recruiting rankings are not, recruiting class trophies are not won in May, right? But 3 big commitments, starting with Kenai Pepe, 5-star offensive tackle, committed to the Trojans on May 1st over Miami, Florida, Texas, and Georgia. 6'7", 320 out of IMG in Florida, of course. The number 6 tackle in the country, according to 24/7 Sports Composite.
He's the number 68 tackle. Number 6 tackle.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. Number 68 nationally in the composite. But in the non-composite, he's number 9 national.
So he's a composite 4-star and a 24/7 5-star.
Yes, and yeah. I would wager that he is more likely to move up that composite board than down that composite board.
Yeah. According to Andrew Evans of 24/7, quote, should be viewed as a technologically advanced corner protector with the desired size and agility, likely to face some initial growing pains in college as he adjusts to the speed of the game, but has rare Sunday traits with plenty of upside. Yeah, that's what you want your future tackle to sound like.
Frankly, USC has not had enough tackles that they have recruited and successfully brought in who we can legitimately say have potential to be high draft picks.
Yeah.
And that is exactly what Kenai Pepe is. He has all of the size that you could want at that position. He is an elite level offensive line recruit. And I think that one thing that USC has been has certainly frustrated fans about is that I think they've taken like a scattergun approach with the offensive linemen that they've added, sort of hoping to find diamonds in the rough because they haven't been able to nail the big dogs. Yeah. And that is not what they're doing here. You can also try to find diamonds in the rough, and USC has some offensive linemen who sort of qualify as that, like Big Vladdy that's coming in as well. But you need to also find sure things that you don't have to develop. And that is what this player is. I don't think it's a coincidence that USC finally lands a top 10 offensive tackle when making the change to an offensive line coach who is simply a more capable recruiter in
Hansen.
Josh Hansen.
Right.
I had a
Henson out, Hansen in.
50-50 shot of Henson or Hansen. My brain hasn't quite clocked it yet, but yes, Hansen has been a more capable recruiter for USC at tight end, and now we're seeing them reap the benefits at offensive line. So again, our assessment of that hire being, as much as we don't necessarily care for inside hires at this point, that hire felt like a good deal, and I think this is a response to that.
Yeah, getting a guy who's 6'7" out of IMG, and is a high 4-star in the composite side of things and a 5-star depending on your preference of publisher, then absolutely. That's where those are the guys SC has wanted for years and haven't necessarily landed, or at least not consistently landed. Let's talk about at the skill positions. 4-star corner Albert Hill. When I saw this, I'm like, Albert Hill. That's a name out of like 1873, right?
Or 1922.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Either way, he committed to the Trojans on May 2nd out of Ohio State, over Ohio State, Alabama, Oregon, and LSU. A big company there for the Trojans to sort of land it. 5'10", 175 out of Archbishop Hoban in Akron, Ohio. One of our good friend of the program, Nick Shook from the NFL Network. Big anti-Hoban guy.
Not a big fan of Hoban.
Rival. It's a big rival of the other schools there in Akron, which means it's good to be hated because it means you're good. Mm-hmm. Means you're good.
I've also, I don't know, maybe I don't know where this perception comes from, but inherently, a high school being Archbishop just feels like more scary.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, in the Valley, like Bishop Alemany.
Yeah.
Not the same. But like Archbishop Hoban.
Is this why Bishop Montgomery sucks at sports?
If they were Archbishop Montgomery, it might be a different story.
Could be.
Yeah.
Could be.
Yeah.
Either way, Hill, number 40 in the country according to 24/7 Sports Composite, which means just outside the 5-star ranking. You got to be top 32 to be a 5-star. Number 3 corner in the country, number 1 recruit in the state of Ohio. Not going to Ohio State, at least as of now. Pledge to the Trojans. Lisa, what are they saying?
Yeah, it sounds like he's more of a slot corner. I mean, at 5'10", it kind of makes sense. Usually when USC, you see the corners that USC targets for the outside positions, and we're going to talk about one of those later, tend to try to be above 6 foot. So 5'10" screams slot, but that's where he could really thrive. He's got he's quick. He can cover guys on the inside, so he very much projects in the slot. But we don't want to put him in a box. Alan True of 24/7 Sports said not as tall as other national corners, but has a skill set where he can play outside and inside in the slot. Given the importance now of slot corners, he figures to be able to slide inside and handle quicker, faster receivers from that spot, and that makes him an asset in college and beyond. So, yeah, this is a big-time corner recruit who would probably be valued. I mean, I think he would probably be a 5-star if you gave him a couple inches on the top, right? Mm-hmm. But within his frame, he is a really, really effective corner, and getting him out of Ohio State, a player that Ohio State wanted, a player that Oregon wanted. These are big hitters in recruiting that USC continues to beat out. Now, the thing we will continue to say about all of these, including Kenai Pepe and Albert Hill, one guy in Florida, one guy in Ohio. There's a lot of guys on USC's class right now that are not in the state of California, as much as USC is doing a much better job of recruiting California. They've still got some big hitters that they need to hold on to, who are going to be heavily pursued by other challengers. So this is going to be one of the recruitments to look out for, to see proof of concept for USC. You can get these guys to commit. Can you hang on to an Albert Hill?
Yeah. Can you land it? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's going to be a big question. And speaking of guys not in the state of California, I think it's time to switch to guys in California. 3-star receiver Luke Weaver committed to SC on May 3rd over UCLA, Washington, and Minnesota. 6'3", 205 out of Notre Dame, your alma mater.
Notre Dame High School, Sherman Oaks.
Yeah.
The Holy Cross University on Riverside and Woodman, baby.
Sure.
We got to keep NDHS well represented at USC. You know, our
huge pipeline. Yeah.
Friend of the show, Saman Jabari. No, NDHS to USC. Me, NDHS to USC. Garrett Green, NDHS to USC.
Is it USC
Wes
Psycho?
Horton. I believe Psycho is NDHS.
Is that where you are?
Yes, it's Black Knights to differentiate from the Golden Knights of Crespi.
Or Vegas, yeah.
Or Vegas, yes. So yeah, big NDHS fan over here, and big fan of Luke Weaver. Now again, fans have an annoying tendency to scoff at the 3-star label. But I want to call attention to what Greg Biggins of 24/7 scouts on scouting report on Luke Weaver. Weaver is an ascending prospect who we like more every time we see him. He's easily among the top pass catchers out west and has a nice combination of size, speed, and body control. The plus side here is that USC is getting in on the ground floor of a player whose profile very much could improve as recruiting goes on, and because he's a local guy, he's the kind of guy that, number one, you hope won't be as hard to keep in place, but it will be easier to access for coaches to go, see him at games or whatever. And is a guy who, right now is not the subject of a ton of attention, but, in 6 months after a big senior season with the Black Knights, could be, off the charts kind of attention for him. So very exciting. He's a track guy with pretty good speed for being 6'3". So that's very nice.
Yeah. Speaking of, really quick, before we move on from Weaver, the image that was put out of his commitment has him in a Notre Dame high school jersey,
which is a Notre Dame jersey.
Totally understandable. That's where he went to high school. That's where the photos are, right? Maybe pick a picture from like a camp. Like committing to SC with a Notre Dame jersey on is little funny, right? Little bit.
Yeah. As Walter Clark in the chat says that Weaver has a 4-star rating now. He's correct in the composite. 24/7 has him as a 3-star. He is a 4-star in the composite, and like I said with Biggins from 24/7. The way they talk about him at 24/7, it will not be long before he's a 4-star there too. So again, a rising guy who will look better and better as the class goes on, assuming that USC keeps him in the class.
Yeah, and to go back to Pepe, Walter also mentioned that he's in high school in Florida, but he's a California kid. Yeah, he's Kobe Pepe's brother. So Kobe Pepe went to Bosco. So. Yeah. Bosco. How do I not have Bosco on the board? Did I take it off the soundboard?
Did you?
Did I? Brutal. Bosco. There we go. All right. Other guy, SC gets a transfer. We might talk about this again at some point because this is already something we've talked about before. UCF transfer Chasen Johnson recommits to USC. No, this is not a repod. This is a recommitment because we're talking about this for the second time here. Committed to USC back in December, then decommitted and committed to SMU, then decommitted from the Mustangs, and then returned to UCF for the spring, competed in spring ball. Trevon Reed was his corners coach. SC goes out and hires Trevon Reed as the Trojans' new corners coach. And lo and behold, spring ball ends in Orlando, and he's like, I'm going to go to SC for real this time. So, committing to USC this time. We'll see if it ultimately sticks, unlike the first.
Okay, so here's my take on this. Number one, this is hilarious. The funniest thing about this is that we're starting to now see commitment graphics where the people making the graphic will they would always do the team logo on the left and then the new team logo on the right, and a little arrow pointing to the new team logo. But now they have to do a combo logo where they have it split in half or even split in 3 or whatever of Georgia and Clemson and then to UCF or whatever, whichever direction it is. Does Chasen Johnson, his commitment photo realistically would have just the UCF logo to the USC logo, but it does not tell the story even slightly. This is
Think of the airline miles he got this.
The silliest recruitment ever. But here's what I will say. Trevon Reed clearly believes in this kid, because after giving USC a commitment and then pulling back and doing this whole runaround, like, there are red flags there, clearly. For Trevon Reed to say it doesn't matter, we want this kid, that's pretty big. I will certainly take it. I also want to point out that two things on this that we will get to. Number one is if you look at USC's transfers, and I haven't done like an analysis of this year's transfer class versus previous years, so I don't know if this is just me going on vibes, but like the number of sophomores that USC has brought in is notable to me, because Chasen Johnson is a sophomore. Zakarius Williams, the wide receiver we talked about last week, sophomore. The Penn State linebacker, sophomore. All of these guys who are transferring in with a whole lot of eligibility left.
Yeah,
I think there's merit in that approach, if it is on purpose. I can't say for sure if I'm just forgetting the way that previous transfers went.
If it's not on purpose, it at least goes on brand with the things that SC is saying. Lincoln Riley has made quite the effort to say that they botched the transfer policy early on in his tenure, which we talked about this like 2 weeks ago or whatever it was. It's a little easy to say that at this point, especially when the two of the transfers that they got at the time were Caleb Williams, who obviously had 2 seasons at SC, but Jordan Addison, who won the Blitnikoff. You would have taken Jordan Addison no matter what. Like, no matter what the vibes were, whether or not you prioritized
hold up.
high school kids or not.
Hold up.
What?
Greg in the chat has just brought up something that I didn't. I missed
the
this.
Alex Grinch thing.
I missed this. Who is the defensive coordinator at UCF?
Alex Grinch.
It's Alex Grinch.
Yeah.
I didn't even put those two things together. This is infinitely more funny now, and it was already hilarious.
Well, is that why Trevon Reed left?
I mean,
I don't know.
Maybe. I mean,
Either way.
Yeah, either way.
Yeah.
Either way.
The Johnson-Reed combo. Good. Reed Johnson, by the way, Cubs legend.
Reed Johnson?
Yeah.
Oh, congratulations to him. I don't know this person. Either way, the other connection here that Chasen Johnson has with USC that I think is very interesting, or at least like fun fact, the best game of Chasen Johnson's career, he played as a freshman last year. According to PFF, his highest like grade of the season was against Utah in the regular season finale. Guess who else had their best game of the season in that game?
Zakarius Williams.
Between UCF and Utah receiver, Zakarius Williams. Mm-hmm. Chasen Johnson even tackled Zakarius Williams for a 2-yard loss in that game. It's certainly fascinating now having two players who are on both sides of that battle at USC now, but it is also noteworthy that this is not a zero-sum game. Zakarius Williams had a big game, and it doesn't seem like Chasen Johnson was responsible for shadowing him for most of the game. Chasen Johnson in that game gave up 5 catches on 7 targets, but they only were for 15 yards. So he very much kept things in front of him. Meanwhile, Zakarius Williams went off and had, I would say, 80-some yards, 90-some yards. Mm-hmm. So, just a fun little fact about those two that...
Funny how things work.
The world is small.
Speaking of you, by the way, it's over. SC's long, storied, the reign of why is his name escaping me at the moment? Cam Rising is over. In the sense of like him torturing USC, it'll never happen again. Unfortunately for him, like this is seriously, it's a bummer. He's retiring due to medical reasons from the injury that he had against Baylor last year on his hand. honestly, like that sucks. Like you don't want anyone to get hurt like that. Cam Rising, hell of a player, especially SC knows more than anybody. At the same time, I think you can sleep easy a little bit. If you're an SC fan thinking about Utah, not only will SC probably never play Utah again, but never even have to worry about Cam Rising anymore.
Yep. Don't have to worry about Cam Rising transferring to
UCLA.
You.
Well,
Washington
no, and they've got a new quarterback.
They do have a different new quarterback. Yes.
And anywhere.
Either way, yeah. Sucks that his career ended the way it did because I actually really liked him as a quarterback. So as much as it pained to have to be on the losing end of his games when USC was it was a very, very fun watch.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. All right. This is one of those seasons, one of those weeks in the off season where like putting together all the content on the light side. You always say that we always have enough stuff to go an hour and a half. We've been on for 36 minutes.
I mean,
what do we have?
Okay, here's what we have. We have 2 things that I've written this week that I can just vamp on. If the people would want.
Go for it.
Or people can throw questions in the chat and then we can do like a Q&A kind of AMA kind of situation.
True off-season episode.
So feel free to pepper the chat with questions that aren't relevant. We can also like talk about random stuff like Survivor or F1 or
we did get an F1 email from.
We did get a jet lag.
From Tony.
Yeah.
A couple weeks ago that we missed about Lewis Hamilton about his struggles. Well, he just got on the podium at Miami in the sprint, so that helps.
Yeah.
West Texas Mike, welcome to the chat. I showed up at 4. We were like 3 minutes late. 4 minutes late? 5? I don't know, something like that. It's like when you pay rent on the second, technically not late. You know what I mean?
No. Okay, so let me vamp a little bit about 2 things that I've written for fansided.com because one of the things that I'm trying to do more often is to write about USC in my day job because I don't really get the opportunity that much, but I have things to say and a certain amount of expertise that I think is worth it. So Zakarius Williams, we kind of to be honest, last week after his commitment, I don't think we put a ton of time into analyzing him as like as an addition. We just knew he was, a big deal at Utah. He was supposed to be their number 1 receiver and that he was coming to USC. I have since done more of a deep dive on Zakarius Williams, and I hate myself because I was like, well, this is a good addition. And now I'm like, well, USC has their 3rd guy. It is set. It is done. Zakarius Williams is that dude. Let's go.
He makes me drool.
So, and why do I feel that way? I feel that way because of Zakarius Williams. This is the article I wrote. Basically, my thesis on the article was Zakarius Williams solves one of the most frustrating issues from USC's offense last year. And that issue from USC's offense last year was the question of separation. USC had, a bunch of talented guys who weren't necessarily great at separating, whether it was because they weren't great at running routes, or because they, were our skill set more directed towards like bodying, winning physical battles, all of that kind of stuff. At times, USC's receivers didn't make it super easy on the quarterback unless their name was Mekhi Lemon, and Mekhi Lemon was noteworthy as the player that made life the easiest, seemed to catch the most passes while wide open or having shaken off a defender or running a really crisp route. So one of the things that I really like is that what Zakarius Williams is known for is his route running, is his ability to create separation, is his penchant for having that wiggle that gets him the yard of space that makes it easier for the quarterback to get him the ball. So USC adding that to a room where you already have Jacoby Lane, who I am really excited about. I still have some questions about his ability to elevate his game to the level that USC needs him to elevate his game. We know he has the talent, but he still needs to sort of take that next step and be consistent. We have Makai Lemon, who is already there in terms of consistency. He just needs to be available. So keeping him healthy is the big thing. And then it was the big question about the number 3 guy. And I think that USC has answered it with Zakarius Williams. He's 6'2", 196, sorry. He's got that physical and he's got that size to compete on the outside. But he is an exceptional route runner. He is a technician, and USC has needed a technician on the with the ability that Zakarius Williams brings, since losing some of the bigger names like Jordan Addison in the past few years. So I'm very, very excited about this kid. I do not want to overhype myself, but he, even when Kyle was talking about the reason that Zakarius Williams was sort of why he called him wide receiver number 1, he said he's the guy that's making the most plays, he's getting open, running the best routes, catching the football cleanest. All of that, music to my ears. Let's go. That is, I could not have asked for a better quote about a player that USC is bringing in. Thoughts, Michael?
The thoughts are you're saying all the right things, right? Like you're saying all the things that I think you want to hear. Like you said last year, I think the issue SC had a ton of talent at receiver. It was the lack of ability to get guys open. It was the lack of ability to sort of make plays. There were a bunch of big drops when you needed catches. The only guy who seemingly was put together completely was Makai Lemon, and he was hurt for a couple of big games, in the front half of the season that SC surely could have used him there. And everybody else had some sort of fatal flaw in their game, right? Like Deuce Robinson, had his moments, but wasn't as physical as you wanted him to be. Jacoby Lane was super physical and did the things to beat his man in the end zone, scored 12 touchdowns, but sort of lacked a lot of the technical aspects and consistency, and I think trust from the coaches and the quarterbacks and all that kind of stuff, right? Zachariah Branch had his speed, and we didn't really see a lot of it, right? Like we saw a lot of holes in his game. Kyle Ford just was a guy who just was sort of limited. He was sort of capped in his ability. At wide
Kyle
receiver,
Ford
right?
is such a great example of like a skill capped player. If we're talking in terms of college football 25, love him. Gave USC a whole lot in the end, but I do think that there was a skill cap there with him and with. It
doesn't help that he had the injuries.
No, the skill cap was there because of the injuries, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
But in terms of him, Kyron Hudson felt like he had a little bit of skill cap.
Kyron Hudson was a guy who had a little bit of Tyler Von's-itis.
Yes. Well, speaking of guys with a skill cap,
great catches. And then when you really needed him to make a play on 3rd and 6, maybe he wasn't going to make that play, but he was going to make the crazy play on 3rd and 19. You know what I mean? And obviously you wanted him to make the crazy play on 3rd and 19 down the field against LSU or whatever it was, right? But at the same time, consistency, and SC lacked the consistency. So someone who is a technician, like we've talked about before with Robert Woods, right? Those are the guys that can always play, right? They can always look back at Darius Rogers. Darius Rogers was a guy who lacked a lot of the physical tools that you would have wanted to see from your receivers. He wasn't necessarily fast. Probably one of the slower wide receivers that SC has had in the last 2 decades. But he was very sound in so many areas and maximized his ability that he was reliably open on third down. He was the guy who was, pivotal for the Trojans in 2016 and 2015, the year before that. So those guys have roles. And not to say that Zakarius Williams is Darius Rogers and that, he's a great route runner, but and blocker and maybe doesn't offer other things. Like, that's not to say that it's not exactly a 1-for-1, obviously, but more so that, like, look back at the no blocking, no Rocky conversation we have at running back all the time, right? If you block, if you do the little things, if you are a technician who gets open, you're going to get run. You're going to get your share of opportunities, and doing the little things right allows you to be on the field more often. And so, yeah, if Zakarius Williams can be that guy, more power to him.
I've got high hopes for that, and I think that USC has really, needed that. And if this is the guy who can come in and be that, because realistically, let's be honest, I have hopes for Prince Strachan, but he screams skill capped, just because of his age. Coming from Boise State, he was a player that they all liked. That it felt like they didn't maximize his potential, but still, I would wager not like could this guy be wide receiver number 1 at USC if even just give competition to Mekhi Lemon or Jacoby Lane for like who is the main man. I don't think Prince Strachan was in that. I've sort of looked at Prince Strachan as can he just be the reliable number 3? Where I look at Zakarius Williams and I think I don't want to be overselling anything here, but I do feel like you have to. I think you can put him in the bucket of guys who could be wide receiver number 1 if things come together.
Yeah, that's a good thing. You said you had thoughts on Jaden Mava this offseason too?
Okay. Again, I have publicly stated on this podcast, I want to approach everything when it comes to USC with a healthy dose of skepticism. I do not want to assume that things will improve just because I want them to improve. I don't want to assume that the ifs that surround this program, the questions that still linger over this roster, that they will all be answered in the positive as opposed to the negative. Like, I need to be realistic, right? That this is where I'm trying to be. I am in this mindset. I am trying to be skeptical. But then JD Pickle of On 3 has a podcast where he talks about how Jaden Mava has the potential to be really good because he's got a little bit of psycho in him, and talked about how like he's got the mindset of a quarterback that you see with guys like Cam. Like, they're just unflappable. Even though they make a mistake, they just come back and keep slinging it, and that there's real merit to that, which got me sort of thinking about Mava and into Mava, and I think that where I'm at with Jaden Mava is a healthy dose of skepticism because I watched the first 3 quarters of the bowl game, while also
the SRS distribution Las Vegas Bowl.
Yeah. Because I sat there in our living room and asked you what the worst quarterback performances of all time at USC were and whether or not this justifies being included. And at the time, we were pretty certain it does justify being included, only for him to turn around and win the damn game. So I think that the skepticism comes from those first 3 quarters. But I also think that we can be realistic and point something else out, which is Jaden Mava went 3-1 as a starter and his lone loss was a relatively narrow victory to a team that went to the national title game in Notre Dame. I think it is worth noting.
I actually think this is a case of optimistic, Alicia.
I think it is worth noting that when we talk about the 2024 USC Trojans, we talk about a team that couldn't finish. We talk about a team that led in the fourth quarter of 5 of their 6 losses and just couldn't get over the hump. Except that when Jaden Mava takes over ahead of the Nebraska game, the led in the fourth quarter and lost narrative vanishes. USC won when they led in the fourth quarter, and they lost the one game where they weren't able to close it against Notre Dame. They closed out Texas A&M. It was ugly, but they closed out UCLA. It was ugly, but they closed out Nebraska. And I think there's an argument here to suggest that the turnaround that we needed to see from USC in terms of the mentality of finishing, the mentality of closing, like, I think there is a distinct possibility that turnaround has already happened, a la 2001. And I know, guys, I'm sorry, but
I actually think this is a case of optimistic, Alicia.
A la 2001, where at that end of that season, USC turned a corner and rode that momentum into what became the 2002 season. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that this year will be the 2002 season equivalent, but I am saying that there's a lot of talk about how USC couldn't finish last year and they need to show they can finish. And I will sit here now and say, what if USC has already showed that they can finish? Like, what if USC has already done that? What if USC has already gotten over that hump? And not to like throw Miller Moss over under the bus, but like there's a distinct line between a USC that can't finish despite playing well in games and a USC that can finish despite playing poorly in most for the majority of those games. And I'm not trying to say that like it's okay for USC to be playing poorly against Nebraska and UCLA and Texas A&M and managing to pull one out. Like, obviously, the playing poorly thing needs to stop. But I do think that there's merit here to this idea that, like, a winning mentality does exist somewhere on this team, and it has already shown us where it exists. Perhaps in the psychotic brain of Jaden Mava.
I hear you. I hear you. I think like we need to see it, right? Like we need to see it. I think that I would like to go back and watch the SRS Distribution Las Vegas Bowl, and sort of wrap my head around it again. Like I'm looking back at the stat broadcast right now. He started 6 of 19. From that point on, though, 16 of 20 for 219 yards. And 3 touchdowns. So, yeah, his worst interception was the last one, if I remember right.
Yeah, and that was after the turnaround.
Like that was in the middle of the turnaround. He did complete 11 of his last 12 passes for 130 yards and 2 touchdowns.
But as J.D. Pickle would point out, like he threw that terrible interception, but it didn't.
West Texas Mike says, did the Holiday Bowl carry over? Question mark. I think the Holiday Bowl win over Louisville carried over to beat LSU.
I would argue.
I don't know that it carried over beyond that.
Well, no, because I would say that USC as a whole played better football in 2024 than they did in 2023.
No, I agree.
I mean, aside from the fact that in 2023 they had a generational quarterback who made up for a lot of that.
If Caleb Williams on the 2024 team.
If Caleb Williams is in 2024, then USC, I would say USC is in the playoff. Because that USC team,
it's
USC with Caleb Williams beats Michigan. They don't lose to Minnesota. They beat Penn State. They don't lose to Maryland. They don't lose to Washington. And Notre
they might
Dame
lose one of those. They don't lose all of those.
Yeah, they might lose one of those if there's just a weird game, and maybe they lose. And then Notre Dame is the one where I will give the most of Notre Dame's defense seemed to have Caleb understood. So,
sure.
But Caleb Williams transposing how the team played as a whole, defensively, offensively, across the board.
Mm-hmm.
If you put Caleb Williams on last year's team is 10-2.
I mean,
and no worse than
it's
that.
hard to disagree, considering how SC had leads in the fourth quarter of every single game.
Yeah.
And yes, Caleb led SC to a 7-5 record in 2023, but he had a defense that gave up 50 points several times. You know what I mean? It wasn't in light of him. It wasn't because of him.
Yeah.
Caleb Williams torched Washington, a team that went to the national championship game, right?
Yeah.
He single-handedly nearly brought SC back against Oregon to make that respectable, right? There's a lot of ifs and buts and all that kind of stuff, but
right.
But yeah, I think
all I'm saying is that we all acknowledge that USC, you are what your record says you are, but the record that USC had last year of 7-6 was not a fair representation of the quality of the football that USC played for the most part in 2024.
Right. Well, how many times have we said it on the pod? The last 3 seasons have all had deceptive
the same freaking season.
They're all the same team in a lot of ways in terms of their overallness,
yes.
right? Because obviously the defense was atrocious in 2023, but the offense was much better in 2023 than 2024. But when you balance everything out, all 3 teams, you look at the numbers, we're fairly even in all 3 years, but the records are all over the place, right? And in the first season, I think the record is a little bit masked. It's easy to overlook SC nearly losing on the road at Arizona, right? It's easy to overlook how they needed an offensive lineman to push forward to beat Oregon State, right? You don't think of those things as negatives when you win those games. When you lose those games, then they get circled. Those are the Minnesota and the Maryland games, the inverse of those, right? In the sense of if SC wins those games, the Maryland and the Minnesota games, you're not going to look back at them the way that you do now because you lost them, right?
Yeah.
Am I making sense here?
The Maryland and the Minnesota games, if USC wins them, they just get thrown into the bucket of winning on the road is hard. So,
Yeah.
And Washington too.
When you're 10-2 or 11-1, and SC was 11-1 in the regular season, 3 seasons ago now. At some point you are what your record says you are, right? So you are in that 11-1, and so you just finish on the road. And sometimes the difference is how you finish on the last drive, right? And SC struggled with that for most of the year, but they also pulled 2 games out of their ass against LSU and Texas A&M. So you could say that against Nebraska too. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, they held on at the end. Yeah.
So West Texas Mike says, so Alicia's forecasting USC will go 11-1. Got it. I mean, yeah. But no. No. I think that what I'm interested in is the idea that there is a lot of skepticism about USC going in that is locked in firmly on the quarterback. I thought Pickle did a good job of sort of breaking down the questions around USC and why he's kind of high on USC or higher on USC than others. That there are 3 main questions about USC coming in. I would add a 4th, but I'll add that in a second. Number 1 was the defense, and I think we all agree that USC has addressed the defense to the extent that USC has an elite defense. That is an additional question that goes in, but I think we can safely assume that USC will have a relatively competent, if not capable, defense in 2025. The other question is the head coach, i.e., like game management, finishing, all of that kind of stuff, which I've already said potentially has already been answered because USC did win three of those last 4 games, and they were in it close against a team that went to the national title game. And then the third question is quarterback, and I think of those 3, as much skepticism as there is about Lincoln, I still think we all acknowledge that he is still a coach who has a track record of winning and of producing good offense, and that doesn't go away because of 1 season or 2. Where I think the most valid questions hinge on the quarterback question, and the fewest solutions are fixated on the quarterback position because you have the quarterbacks that you have. It's either Jaden Mava or Hassan Longstreet, and that's that. But I would simply argue that people are approaching it from the perspective that like Jaden Mava is like a 6-6 quarterback, where I'm at with Jaden Mava is I think he's probably closer to a 9-3 quarterback than people are willing to acknowledge. And I say this because he was 3-1 with USC in the games that he played. At UNLV, he was I think 8-4 as a starter, or 8-4 in games that he was the primary quarterback, including a bowl game where UNLV was against a tougher opponent. So like I think that he has proven a certain amount of winning capability despite his flaws, despite his the parts of his game that need to get cleaned up. And USC being 11-1 versus 9-3 to me, that's where the does Jaden Mava clean up his game thing hinge. It's not 9-3 to 6-6 about whether or not Mava cleans up his game. The calculation is with at the 8-4, 9-3 range, and then him cleaning up his game takes USC up into actual contention, which I would argue is maybe an optimistic approach to the quarterback situation, but I would argue a relatively fair one given the evidence that we have in front of us from what we have actually seen from him, which is certainly flawed gameplay, but gameplay that ultimately results in USC victories.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how all of that sort of comes together. I think that I'm just tired of talking about SC having seasons where you have to sort of compartmentalize a lot of things. This was a team this team would have been better if there was that defense on it, or this team would have been better if there was that offense on it, or whatever.
Yeah.
If SC can just put together a season in which they play up to their potential on both sides of the ball, and they are consistent and all that kind of stuff, it's like, I think that's what you want, right? Like that's what you want. Are they going to win a national championship? Probably not. But like at least they'll be maximizing their potential and put themselves in a position to keep moving forward, continue to recruit, and all that kind of stuff. And then you take the number 1 class from next season if you get that, and then you just keep building on that, and you continue to maximize your offense and your defense, and that's how you build things into the Mecca, right? Like it's just way easier said than done. But like we've said a million times, SC had a lead in the fourth quarter in all but one game last year, and the one that they didn't, they had the ball trying to tie it,
moving into the red zone with a chance to tie
with like 4 minutes to go. So against a team that went to the national championship game. So there's a lot to like. There's a lot to be skeptical of. Put that all together and see what comes of it.
Before we wrap up, I do want to really quickly address earlier Greg gave a bold prediction, which is for the first time since 2008, the USC defense will give up fewer than 100 rushing yards per game. Low key, I kind of like that prediction.
Okay.
Number one, because I do think we continue to see passing offenses be more of a focal point, even in conferences like the Big Ten. But number two, and again, this might just be my perception that is not based in reality, because maybe this is every year. These are the like running backs that get drafted or whatever. But like this was a ridiculously deep running back class in the draft. Mm-hmm. Quinshon Judkins and Trayvon Henderson from Ohio State get drafted. Caleb Johnson from Iowa gets drafted. Jordan James from Oregon. Kalel Mullings from Michigan. Kyle Monangai drops from Rutgers, drops into day day 3, I think. You got Woody Marks down there. Like there were a lot of these teams, with the exception of basically Penn State. I believe they kept Katron Allen. And then like Minnesota has Darius Taylor, who was quite good this past season, coming back as a junior. But like there were a lot of sort of senior or junior high level running backs in the conference this past year. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if across college football, because there were a ton in all other conferences as well, I wonder if across college football we will see a minor, but not totally insignificant dip in rushing performance, because I don't know that the 2025 running back field in college football chance to be as strong as it was in 2024. Again, I could be wrong, but that's just my perception. That's my feeling.
Yeah, I think it's a fair thought experiment. I think it's going to be interesting to see how that goes. Like looking at the numbers last season, how many off the dome, how many teams do you think in the Big Ten allowed fewer than 100 yards rushing per game?
Let's say 2 or 3.
4. However, Nebraska and Penn State were 5 and 6, and they allowed 101.2 and 101.8. So basically
it's very
right there
doable
too.
In the Big Ten.
It is doable.
Yeah.
SC was 13th at 141. It's interesting because I think we all thought that SC was pretty solid on defense, right? Last year.
But they gave up big rushing plays. Like that's the problem.
They did give up big rushing plays, but they were also 13th in the conference, which sounds, not ideal. Like 141 yards in terms of rush defense. There's 100 and can I get, where is it? Defense. Here we go. 2023, 186 yards. 2022, 159. 165. 153. 162. 164. 158. 139. And 2016 is when you have to go back and find a team that stopped the run more than SC did. And I think the difference there is when you look at like tackles for loss defensively, last year, SC in 2024 had the yardage for tackles for loss was 210. Compare that to, say, 2023, it was 331. So after the quarterback affects those numbers too, because in college football, sacks count as rushing yards. So if you had more sacks, you'd be able to generate more negative yardage, right? Like in 2023, SC in terms of sack yards, 205 sack yards. Last year was 113. So divvy it up, and that's, you're looking at 8, 7, 9, 10 yards a game, whatever it is. So and it all adds up.
And like Greg says, this defensive line, it feels like USC just has more of the bodies that they need to be a run-stopping defense. There a lot will depend on the linebackers too, on the guys outside and inside linebacker. Like you said, because the pass rush does matter here. Run fits do matter, but this is probably the most capable defensive line that we've we've seen at USC for a long time in terms of confident that physically they can be run stopping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. West Texas Mike says, when was the last time SC lost to a non-power conference team?
Tulane.
It's Tulane, yeah. Yeah, and then the regular season is why am I drawing blanks here?
Regular season would have to go much further back. No, BC is in ACC.
BC is in the ACC. I guess we're just excluding Notre Dame here.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, because that's in the spirit of Power 5.
Do we have to go back to lost to Fresno State in the Freedom Bowl, lost to Utah in the Vegas Bowl.
Yeah.
But those are not regular season games. 2019.
Texas Mike says, but Tulane was good. Does that count?
Yeah, like
I mean, it's fair.
It goes against
it's a fair question. When was the last? I think that we can word this question in this way. When was the last time USC was upset? Well, no, because the Tulane game wasn't upset, but
an embarrassing upset to a G5,
yeah,
or to a non-power school.
Yeah,
like the one that stands out is Memphis State in 1991 or whatever that was.
Okay, I'm pulling up USC's media guide with the year by year games. So hold on, let me see.
Memphis State was an embarrassing loss. Like that is the embarrassing egg on the face.
Well, see, and this is why I continue to say, like, USC fans have
and that was 90 or 91.
USC fans
91?
have lived a charmed existence, even in the worst days with USC. Like, it ain't the same as a lot of other schools have had to go through.
Yeah, I mean,
okay, so
Alabama lost to ULM under Nick Saban.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see.
SC lost to Memphis State. Memphis. They
Boston
formerly were
College.
Memphis State.
Well,
24-10 in 1991.
Georgia State was ACC. Blah, blah, blah.
92 they tied San Diego State.
Was there none in 2001? Kansas State,
The
Oregon,
losses
Stanford,
in 2001
Washington,
I think
Notre
would have
Dame.
all been
Yeah, they were all Power
because
5.
they beat San Jose State in 2001.
Yeah. Okay, so then Kansas State, Washington State, Oregon, Arizona, in the 90s.
Yeah,
This is wild, actually.
There isn't one. It is Memphis. It's Memphis in 91. They tied San Diego State in 92, but that was a loss.
But a tie in that context, I'll give that. A tie
in that context, sure.
That's got to be the most recent.
Yeah, but I think the key is that there isn't an SC's embarrassing losses have been to conference foes.
Wait, and did we Memphis State? Was USC ranked?
In 91, yeah, 16th.
Yeah, okay. So that's I think 91 is the one that fits
That's
the bill.
the egg on the face game.
That's a things were expected of losing to a team that I didn't necessarily know existed.
You coached at them.
Is that Memphis? That's
Memphis State
Memphis
is
State
Memphis.
is Memphis? Oh, okay.
Yeah, they dropped the state.
I gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
But I mean, again, it's been a charmed existence for USC fans because we are looking now. We're looking back 30 years, and finding a loss to a non-Power 5 team in the regular season is really damn hard.
Well, because even if you look at bowl games, just off the dome, it's Fresno State in the Freedom Bowl, Utah in the Vegas Bowl, Tulane in the Cotton Bowl, and only one of those was a bowl that you would have. Well, you can make the case that all three of those bowls were games that SC didn't want to be in, right? I guess the Vegas Bowl they would have wanted to be in there in 2001 because that was the year the second half of the season SC fought hard to be there. But because they went 5-1 in the second half of the season to get bowl eligible. But still, yeah. Anyways, that's going to wrap things up. We'll be back next week, May 14th, 4 p.m., hopefully not 4:04, so that way West Texas Mike doesn't hold it against us and hates us forever.
In 1960, what conference would TCU have been in?
Southwest. That would have been a major conference.
We're calling that Power 5, okay.
TCU's weird because, like, they were in a major conference the vast majority of their existence. They stopped being in a major conference in 94 when the Southwest Conference dissolved, and then they bounced around from like Conference USA and the Mountain West, and they like bounced around a little bit, and then ultimately came back to the Big 12.
Again, I don't know that this counts because in 1950, where was Navy in terms of the pecking order of
Navy would
in 1950? I don't know.
I don't know that Navy fits the bill of that question. 1950 Navy, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Because like at this point, I am now in the 1940s.
1950,
so like
Navy finished the season number 4 in the country.
We could potentially earnestly say that
50, not
USC has suffered one regular season loss to
1950 Navy was bad. Never mind.
Okay. But okay, the concept of Group of 5 and Power 5.
Mm-hmm.
Like if we create it, we had to create a delineation of when that is clearer. I don't know when that would be.
I don't think you can really include the 1950 game to Navy. Well, then also you get into the war era. Like there's some weirdness.
I mean, USC lost to the San Diego Naval Base. Like, it's
what like the 1944 team beat St. Mary's pre-flight 6-0.
The 1943 team lost to March, which was the Air Force.
Yeah, and in 45, SC lost to St. Mary's and lost to the San Diego Naval Station. Yeah.
In 1942, USC lost to Tulane.
Is Tulane in the SEC
I
in
don't know.
1942?
Tulane might be SEC in 1942. I don't know.
They are in the SEC in 1942.
So again, I think we're approaching being able to definitively say that USC has suffered one, maybe two losses in history to a Group of 5 level team in the regular season. But not even App State, because App State was an FCS school. Like losing to an FCS power at that point is different than losing to who did to Idaho State or whatever that Alabama lost to.
Well, I think that the difference is like. I don't think this absolves SC from their embarrassing losses, though, because
no. But
losing to Stanford in 2007,
absolutely not. But again,
a historical loss just because Stanford's in the Pac-12 doesn't mean that that didn't have the same weight as losing to, say, New Mexico in 2007, just because they would have been in the Mountain West, you know?
Right, but I just think again, when we're talking about if we were having a discussion about the greatest programs in college football history, obviously I think USC is up there in that conversation.
Sure.
But this would be an interesting piece of evidence to bring to the table to sort of prove USC's worth in one of those conversations, because we talk about, teams that have been consistently good across decades, that have not just sort of dominated one decade and then sort of fallen off or all that kind of stuff. Like the crazy thing about USC is even when USC is bad, USC is not losing to Group of 5 teams bad.
Yeah. They're not losing to Group of 5 teams bad. Yeah. SC will still beat Fresno State and San Jose State.
Matthew makes a good point. Devil's advocate, USC historically only plays 1 or 2 non-power teams per year. USC probably does relative to other schools because of the Notre Dame schedule inclusion.
Less of a chance.
USC
for sure.
each year probably plays at least 1 fewer, if not 2 fewer, depending on the conference, non-power teams per year.
Yeah.
So that may also account for it, certainly.
Yeah.
Fair.
Yeah, 100%. So that's a banner to raise. No embarrassing losses. There you go. No embarrassing losses since 1991.
West Texas, Mike, also, so this is my point. People like saying that losing to Stanford was an all-time bad loss, but they're in the conference. There is some overlap with recruits, kind of a little, okay, maybe not. No, West Texas, Mike, I think this is a fair conversation to have, and I'm not trying to, trust me, freaking losing that game was horrific. They were a 40-point underdog. Like, that wasn't a mistake to have them as that kind of underdog. Having said that, if in hindsight we could have said USC lost to a Stanford team that was coached by a head coach who would take them to who within a year's time, within 2 years' time, would have them built up into 3 years' time. Who would, by the time he left Stanford, they were winning an Orange Bowl.
Well, he was ended up being a national championship coach who went to a Super Bowl.
Yeah, like
that Stanford team had a Hall of Fame football player on it.
Yeah, like
except he was playing on the other side of the ball because Richard Sherman was a receiver. At the time.
Yes.
Yeah.
But my point being, like, in hindsight, that Stanford team was not good. I'm not absolving USC.
Tavita Pritchard, pretty good coach.
I was going to say, well, in hindsight, if you look at that team,
I think it's a quality loss, Alicia. I think you're making a good point.
It's not a quality loss, but when you consider Jim Harbaugh has now proven himself to be one of the most capable head coaches at any level of college of football of the past 20 years. He's won a national title. He's taken an NFL team to Super Bowl. That is very rare in and of itself. His track record across the board in college football has been extremely strong, including building Stanford into a program that was capable of dominating or at least competing in the Pac-12 for a decade. Jim, like, the fact that team was coached by Jim Harbaugh, to me, makes it make a lot more sense when you factor in that the team on the other side was coached by Jim Harbaugh, and USC was stupid and didn't pull John David Booty with a broken finger. Like, I think that there is an explanation for how that happened in a way that I cannot explain how App State beat Michigan.
Well, I mean, the way that they beat Michigan is that was a national championship team with
in FCS.
Yeah, who Armani Edwards, right, was the quarterback, and he could have started at a bunch of FBS schools.
Yeah.
Anyways, let's wrap it up there.
And you said we couldn't.
Well, you just went on.
You give me a chance to vamp, and I will vamp. That's what we learned.
Yeah. It is a quality loss. Yeah. West Texas, Mike.
You know what? Yeah. I'm gonna own this. I am going to.
You're gonna rewrite history.
I'm gonna rewrite history.
More impressive loss.
And
2007 against Stanford and 2008 against Oregon State.
I think losing to Oregon State in 2008 was a worse loss than losing to Stanford in 2007. And I say that accepting that Oregon State at that time was a Mike Riley team that was always semi-competitive. But that was the best USC defense of the last 30, 40 years.
But it was also on the road. In a difficult place.
No, I can explain how USC lost to Stanford far more easily than I can explain how that USC defense allowed themselves to get pantsed by Jacquizz Rodgers. What? Jacquizz Rodgers? Yeah. Or one of those freaking Oregon State running backs.
You saying that the Oregon State loss is less
loss.
Explainable than the Stanford loss is mind-boggling.
Yeah.
Mind-boggling. Even if the explanation
the Oregon
is just
State game, USC's quarterback did not have a broken finger. The Oregon State game, we know that Mike Riley, good coach, but not like Jim Harbaugh level coach.
The off season has been too long. We need new football to discuss. Jesus.
Yeah.
All right, we'll be back next week. Email us, rantoftroyfans.com, phone number 818-643-7227. We'll be back then. Until then, we will see ya. See ya.
See ya.